Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another online session in June webinars. Tonight, we are going to talk about an extremely important skill and that we need all to master, which is writing. To master this skill, to make our thinking visible, and also to be prepared to live in this world. So I am excited to welcome my mentor and my teacher, Dorothy. Dorothy is actually, a very creative author. So I will let her do the introduction. But before that, I just want to mention that the main mission of Everyone Academy is to connect teachers together, to exchange experiences, and to collaborate with each other. Because teachers, when they collaborate, they are better together, as we all say. This is our model. So welcome, Dorothy.
Thank you for having me. So I think I'm going to go and share my screen now.
Yes.
You should be able to see my PowerPoint. Yes?
Yes.
I like to hear a yes. So good evening or good afternoon. It's afternoon. It's 1 p.m. for me on the west coast of the United States. I hope everybody is ready for a good session. You can bring your coffee or tea or water. You can eat your lunch. I can't see you. So let's just relax and have a good time. I do want to say that I'm sharing slides that have a lot of links in them. And I know that what you want to do with links is click on them. So I have also given Aziz a Microsoft Word document that has all the links. So he's going to be sharing that in the chat, maybe at the end of this session. So don't worry about taking photos of links or trying to write them down. You will get those in a nice, easy to use format. So I don't think you have to take any notes. You can just relax and listen and think, and we will have some time for questions at the end. So I am going to be talking, obviously, about opportunities for emerging writers. I'm going to talk about a number of different kinds of writing, but not so much about textbooks, because that's a huge field. Maybe a little bit at the end, but mostly I'm talking about other kinds of writing, okay? So I wanted to start by thinking about what I see as a conundrum. If you talk to readers and audiences and teachers about what kinds of things they want to read and who do they want to hear from, you'll see a lot of people calling for fresh talent and new voices, people we haven't heard from before. And there, especially now, there is this desire to hear from traditionally underrepresented voices or younger people or just new people. But at the same time, people want somebody famous. They want somebody whose quality is well known, right? So it's a bit of a contradiction. How can you hear from fresh, new voices, but at the same time have somebody with a proven track record who's well known? But I think the good news is, except for well known, those other things, demonstrated quality and a bank of writing, that's something you can control. Whether or not you become well known, that's up to the world. But writing something interesting and writing something useful and having a demonstrated body of quality writing, those are things that you can control. So that's what we're going to be talking about this afternoon or evening or morning, depending on where you are. So I think there are two kinds of emerging writers, broadly speaking. There are people who have already written articles or books or lesson plans or something, but just haven't found a place to publish them. And then there are people who know that they want to write, but maybe aren't sure about what to write or haven't actually written it down yet. So we're going to talk about both of those kinds of writers, because I think the challenges are really not so different. Both people looking for an audience for something they've already written and people who are trying to decide what to write, I'm going to recommend that you do some of the same things. First thing I'm going to recommend is to become specialized in something. It's much easier for an audience's brain to connect you to one or two topics. I think Carol Reed, I think, oh, young learners. I think Savannah Richardson, I think, oh, issues around non-native speakers. Right? I think Diane Larson Freeman, I think, oh, grammar. And all of those people do other things, but there's an area that I immediately associate with them. And then it goes the other way too. And I think, young learners. Oh, Carol Reed writes about young learners. And then I will go and look for that person. So sometimes when I'm talking to new writers and I say, what are you interested in? They say, everything. And that's great. It's great to be interested in everything. But for your writing, I would pick one area, maybe two. And you can expand later, but start with one or two areas that you want to concentrate in. It can be something you do well. If you are a teacher, do you have great success with lower intermediate students? Do you have a nice way of getting non-readers interested in reading? Perhaps you have some good techniques for teaching pronunciation. So think of something you do well. You can also think of something that you're interested in and then become somebody who knows about that. Are you interested in task-based learning or project-based learning, but you've only done a little? That's okay. Begin to read and attend presentations and teach yourself. But choose one or two areas and write about those areas first. Then you also need to think of who you are writing for. I think that's a little bit harder if you've already finished something, because you have to step back and think, now who would be interested? Whereas if you haven't written anything yet, you can identify an audience first, and then your writing will be more targeted. But again, I sometimes have, new writers say to me, oh, any teacher would like my article. Well, probably not. Whatever you write is going to be more interesting to one audience than another. Are you targeting novice teachers or experienced teachers? Teachers of school-age children or university students, non-academic students, business people? Do you mean people who love technology and love to be online, or people who are resistant to technology and want more traditional techniques? Not every teacher is the same. Not every reader in the world is going to be interested in what you write. So you want to be really sure you know who you are writing for, or who you have written for. Then, at the same time that you are writing or thinking about your writing, I'd say begin researching where your writing can go. So I'm going to give you some examples of different types of places where you can publish, and then I'll give you some specific places for you to research. I think the most sensible place to start is local teaching associations. So in Morocco, that look to mate. If you are in a country that doesn't have a local teaching organization yet, or doesn't have a very strong one, if you're in Algeria, look to your neighbors in Tunisia and Morocco. If you have something to say about teaching, bilingual French, Arabic students, I think Tunisia and Morocco would also be interested in hearing from you. So for those local organizations, they often have newsletters, they might have conference session write-ups, they might have Facebook pages where you can post something. And the advantages there is you're talking to people who have the same context that you do. So it's I think easier to find your audience, because you know what kinds of things you can say to those people. And it's also a good place to make professional connections. We're going to talk later about finding people to check your writing before you publish it. It's great to have somebody, maybe you could even meet, post-COVID, when we can all meet again in person, somebody you can get together with and they share their writing and you share your writing. It can be easier to make those connections with somebody in your own country or region. But you can also look to international organizations and organizations from other countries if they have something in common with your country. There are, of course, a lot more organizations in the whole world than there are in just your country, and they're read by more people. So you also don't have to choose one or the other. I see this sort of as a progression, that you would start with your local teaching association and then move on to something more international, but you can also target both at the same time. And then I want to put in a plug for blogs. I know that sometimes people say, oh, blogs, aren't those from the 1990s? Yes, but in teaching, because they get longer articles, there are a lot of blogs that are still very active. So one thing you can do is look for blogs that are about an area that you're interested in and ask if you can do a guest post, right? Bloggers are often looking for content. And if you say, oh, I notice you write a lot about testing. I have some interesting things to say about the entrance exams in my country. Could I write an article about that for you to publish on your blog? And if you have good content on an interesting topic, often people will say yes and be very happy to have your content on their blog. And a nice thing about that is they already have an audience, right? So you're connecting to readers already. If you can't find a blog or people don't want your post, you can always start your own. If you start your own blog, right, which is free, anybody can get a WordPress or a Blogger account. It doesn't even matter if 0 people are reading your writing at first, because it now exists, right? It's on the web. You have a link, something you could put in a resume, something you could put in a CV or a cover letter. Now you have evidence. You remember I said before that if you want to build up a body of evidence to prove that you can write well and you have interesting things to say, this is one way to do it. People might search for your name and now they'll find something. So don't be afraid to start a blog with 0 followers. Followers will come, readers will come, but even with 0 readers, you now have a collection of evidence of your writing. If you are going to write for an association newsletter or an international magazine or journal or blog, I do highly recommend that you read or follow it for a few months first, so that you know you are sending your writing to the right place. Right? I would never offer a journal an article if I had never read that journal. But if there is a journal or magazine you think you are interested in, but they want you to, pay to join, sometimes you can contact the editor and say, I'm very interested in submitting an article. Do you have an example, a free issue that I could check first? And sometimes they will let you have a free copy if you say that you're serious about contributing to them. So let's talk. Oh, sorry. This is why I have slides, so I don't forget my own notes. After you've picked what to write and who to write for, and any writer should follow the same process writing steps that we tell our students to follow, right? You should still be brainstorming ideas, organizing them, writing a first draft, putting it aside, coming back, checking it again, revising it. But the one step that I add for professional writers that I don't add for students is that last step of get outside eyes. Somebody else should look at your writing. Right? We always tell students, don't do that. I want to see your own work. But for professional writers, you do want somebody to check your work. Because something that's published with your name on it is going to live forever. on the internet, and you want it to be your very best work because that's a reflection of you. So how do you do that? I would start with a peer, right? Somebody who teaches in maybe in a similar situation, could be a friend that you know online from social media. If you have made friends in your country's national organization, here is a good place to find somebody to just read and give opinions. You don't have to follow every opinion, but you want to know how somebody who isn't you is going to understand your writing. Do they have any questions? Do they think you should add something? Do they think you should remove something? And again, you as the writer still have to make those choices, but you want to test the waters, as we say, with an audience before you publish. If you are writing online for a blog or for any kind of publication that is being published online, increasingly, we have a need for images as well as words. And I hope as teachers, you already know that you cannot just go to Google Images, grab an image and put it in your article because there could be copyright considerations. So I'm giving you 3 sites where you can find images that are free to use. They're free to use in your classes, they're free to use in published work, they're free to use in commercial work. So those first 2, Pixabay and Unsplash, are like stock photo sites. And that third one, ELT Pix, those are images taken by other English language teachers. So sometimes the organization is a little harder to follow, but there's some good pictures there because they're taken with a teacher's eyes. So if you're looking for images that will support topics about teaching, then ELT Pix can be a good collection. But finally, at the end, I'm going to recommend that you hire an editor and or a proofreader. That's a different kind of person from your friend who's giving you feedback, right? A professional is going to be more objective. They're going to look for different things, formatting, punctuation. Are you all British English or all American English, right? Not so much the content maybe, but all of those other pieces. And I know when I say hire that people get nervous because hire means money. Some people don't have money. In some countries, people have money, but they have no way to exchange it with the outside world. But I would say there's more than one way to hire an editor or a proofreader. Of course, you can do it with money, but you can also do it with trading or bartering. I've bartered edits before. If you're sitting in a country where you cannot send any money overseas, find a teacher who also works as a proofreader or editor and volunteer to teach one of their classes. Do a guest lecture. Say, I would be happy to explain to you the university system in Yemen. I will take your students for an hour and explain my country and my culture. In exchange, could you check my article? So be creative, right? There's more than one way to hire a professional than just by giving them money. But the reason you do all these things, as I've said, is because this writing is going to live in the world for years, possibly even longer than you, with your name attached to it. So you always want it to be your best effort. You can think of every little article that goes out as kind of like a portfolio or a business card or a resume. It's representing you everywhere to the world all the time. So when you're actually ready to publish, make it your best work. Okay, now I want to talk about some specific places that I think are friendly to emerging writers. The first one is the English Teaching Forum magazine. This is put out by the United States Department of State. It is free. It is both paper and online. If you're in a country that has connections with the American Embassy, you probably just ask for a free paper copy. But there's the web address. They love to have articles from different countries, from different teachers. especially practical things, things that work in your classroom, or an interesting idea you have, or a game you created. So that's a really nice place to connect with other teachers about teaching. Another place that's always looking for new writers is the IATEFL Voices, which is, it might be print as well. I don't live in the UK, so I get mine online because it seems wasteful to mail a paper copy.
Yes, I had one on.
Yeah. So it's supposed to be just for people who are IATEFL members, but if you are a member of a partner organization, like if your country is an affiliate of IATEFL, that also counts. And if you are neither of those things, but you're still very, very interested, I would say email their editor, Tanya, tell her I sent you, and ask anyway. And they take a variety of articles. You can respond to a talk you heard at IATEFL. You can talk about a situation in your own country. You can talk about teaching issues. You can talk anything, salaries, conditions, reading theories. That's a very friendly place. And the current editor, Tanya, is especially friendly and helpful to new writers. I picked the MEX TESL journal, which is the Journal of Mexico TESL, as an example of a journal from one country that is not limited to only articles for Mexico or even Central America or Latin America. They will take interesting quality articles about any aspect of teaching and learning. So just because you see the word Mexico in their organization name, don't assume that you can't submit to them if you don't live in Mexico. And this is, I think, a very quality journal and also friendly to new writers. TESL EJ is also open to anybody. That's more of a place for sort of serious research. If you've carried out some extensive study as part of an MA or PhD program, TESL EJ might be a place for you. They do have a pretty rigorous review process, right? I think at least 2, maybe 3 review editors will read your submission and comment and say, we will publish it with some changes, we'll publish it with heavy changes, or we won't publish it. But if you have more, I would say, serious research, check out TESL EJ. This is a completely new opportunity that I just found out about a couple of weeks ago. It's an app. It hasn't launched yet, but they're launching at the end of June. It's an app that just has graded readers. So if you write short fiction or short nonfiction, but at graded levels for A1 or A2 or B1, B2 readers, they're looking for, they have readers from publishers. They have, Macmillan and all the other big publishers, but they also take submissions from individual authors. So that's the site for the Writing Center. I think you do need a Gmail address in order to access that, but I also gave you the guy's email in case that link doesn't work for you. So if you're interested in writing short graded readers, get them up on the app. And the nice thing about an app, is that will pay you. If people read your work and they like your work, you will get a little bit of money. And finally, I just want to mention that you can look in like traditional places like LinkedIn for jobs for writers. I actually just picked up some work. I'm now going to be what do they call it? Not a blogger, researcher, writer, something once a month for an organization that just wants longer articles. But I found them through an ad on LinkedIn that said, we are looking for content writing about English language teaching. I'd never heard of them, but I thought, oh, English language teaching, that's what I do. I'll apply. So there are places that you haven't heard of that are looking for writers. And some of those will also, of course, be paid opportunities. Finally, I would say you can consider self-publishing, which covers a range of materials. If you are thinking of like more textbook type things, either paperback books or ebooks or collections of articles, collections of essays or blog posts, you can self-publish your work and either sell it on stores like iTunes or Google Play or Amazon, or you can just create a file that you could share within your high school or university or just to your students. And there's also a site where people publish shorter things, even one-page worksheets. If you've done one fantastic lesson for practicing the present perfect, there's probably another teacher out there who really wants your lesson plan. So there is a site called Teachers Pay Teachers, and it's teachers uploading their teaching materials and other teachers buying those teaching materials. So if you have short materials, but that you think are good enough that somebody else would want to give you a little bit of money so they can have your lesson to use in class, that's a great place to look. To learn how to make books that you publish on Amazon is a slightly more a longer process, but I will point you in some directions to learn how to do that. One is David Gogren's site. He has both a course and a book about self-publishing, and both of those are free. So if you go to his site, you can look for Starting from Zero. It's a course on how to begin publishing if you know nothing. And he also has the free ebook, Let's Get Digital, which it's a little bit more for writers of fiction, I think, but there's a lot of information that would be useful for nonfiction and for education writers as well. There is also a course on self-publishing for ELT professionals, and that's taught by me, so I know it well. We're actually just about to start. We have it's a 1-month course. We're in June this year. We start on June 6th or 5th, depending where in the world you are sitting. There are 4 live sessions, but they're all recorded, so it doesn't matter what your time zone is. We get a community of people. We share work for feedback. I take you through all the steps. I show you exactly what to do. You learn how to make a book cover. Aziz actually is one of my, I don't know, the first year or second year, but he took that course and came out with a great little book. Maybe he's even on his second book by now. I don't know. Where's your second book, Aziz?
I'm still brainstorming ideas.
Well, there you go. but he'll get there. So I keep thinking that someday I will also make it a self-access course that you can get any time of year, but I haven't had time. So at the moment, it's only a live course. I usually do it for 1 month every summer. This summer is June. We're starting soon, but I think we still have 4 or 5 places left in the class. The last thing I want to leave you with is an example of a free ebook. This is one that I wrote, which is why I can give it to you for free. You can get it on Apple or Smashwords or Google Play, wherever you like. And I use this book in my course as an example of the kinds of things you can write. This is actually a collection of 2 or 3 articles that I had written for somebody else's website. For Betty Azar used to run a nice website that stopped when she retired. And I used to blog for her, and I wrote some articles about using games in the classroom. I took pictures myself. I just took my phone and took pictures of my games, and I have some pictures there of students using my games. And when they disappeared from her blog, I just collected them into a nice little book, and it's short, and I put it out there for free. So that's an example for you of the kinds of materials that you can create and you can share. And the reason, I have this book free for a number of reasons. One is it's short. I don't need any money for it, but also I use it in my course as an example. And it's in the digital world, it's kind of like a business card for me. Somebody might pick up the book and say, oh, I like the way she writes. I'm sure she has good ideas. And then they know my name they know my writing style, they know a little bit about me, and maybe they'll look for other things of mine and, interact with me in other ways. So download that and read it. Yeah, enjoy the games, but also be thinking, oh, do I have ideas like this? Just practical things for the classroom that I could write about and I could share with other people. So that's what I have to say. Thank you very much for listening. I think we have my beautiful assistant Aziz monitoring if there's any questions that people have in the
Yes.
chat or something.
So thank you for this very interesting session. I was just wondering about for example, if you have an idea and you want to self-publish it, we all the time have ideas in the classroom. We have challenges and we want to share them in the form of a book or an article. So how to reconcile these two things? What people want, what the audience want, and what we want as teachers.
Well, I think that's where it's very useful to belong to a national organization or just to be active on social media. Talk to other teachers.
Yes.
I'm sure if there's a struggle you have in your classroom, somebody else has that struggle too, right? It would be very unusual for you to have something interesting in your classroom that no other teacher has. But if you begin to talk, I mean, there are, as you know, on Facebook, hundreds of groups of teachers. Start discussing your idea and see who's interested. And that will give you an idea of what aspect people want, right? Is everyone worried about teaching online, or people have concerns, or how do I test? How do I assess people online? And you have some suggestions. I'm sure if you went to a teachers group and said, is anybody interested in assessing students' work while we teach online? Hundreds of students are going to say, other teachers are going to say, yes, me too. I have an idea. So
yes, the second challenge that I faced personally is with feedback, with reviews. When I finish your course and I managed to publish the ebook with the cover, etc. I was like I received some feedback, but I thought they were not enough because I wanted second perspective. But people just say congratulations, that's a good job. That's not a feedback. It keeps you motivated, but feedback.
Right. Well, the time for
Yes.
constructive feedback is really before you publish, right?
For
Because if you are going to make any changes, you want to make those changes before you publish. Right?
Oh yes.
Otherwise, you have to publish again, and then somebody is holding the early work, and someone is holding the medium work, and somebody is holding the later work, and we're not all looking at the same book. So that's one reason it can be hard to get feedback from friends.
Yes.
Because it's very uncomfortable for a friend to offer you any kind of criticism, because they're thinking, and they're not wrong, that the friendship is more important than the book.
Yes.
So, right? So you need to find somebody who will give you feedback who is friendly, but not your friend. So if you can find somebody in another city or another country who is also interested in writing, you can agree to exchange manuscripts. And I think then it's easier to give more honest feedback, right? But it's hard to put your friends in that position of, give me tough criticism, and then they do, and your feelings are hurt, and then it's awkward. Or look for a professional editor, right? If somebody's giving me money to look at their book, I'm going to give them very honest feedback. Right? So
in one of the articles in ITDI, you mentioned 3 types of editors: developmental editor, copy editor, and a proofreader.
Yeah, so a developmental editor works with sort of broad ideas, and probably in our profession, that's more common with textbooks or longer projects. If I'm writing book 2 in a 5-book series, a content editor is going to make sure that, you know, I am harder than book 1, but not as hard as book 3, and that, you know, we're recycling vocabulary and that kind of thing. If you really don't know how to focus your writing at all, or you have, you know, kind of a word salad and you don't know how many topics you're writing about or how to narrow it down, a content editor could help with that kind of thing. A copy editor is going to be looking more at style and consistency and word choice, and then a proofreader really just for mistakes. Should there be a semicolon here instead of a comma? Is this word spelled correctly? That kind of thing.
Yes, that's great. So sometimes, Dorothy, we write, but we do you think that there are some authors with no ear? Sometimes we write and we feel that there is no there is nothing wrong with our writing. That even after you know, criticism and
Yeah. That's a hard question to answer, because sometimes it's a question of finding the right audience, right? If you look at great literature in the world and you read their reviews on Amazon, there's somebody who hates Shakespeare, there's somebody who loves Harry Potter, somebody who hates Harry Potter. There's no piece of writing that everybody agrees is wonderful. Your challenge is to find the right place to put your writing where most people will think it's useful, or at least some people will think it's useful. If your writing is sitting somewhere where nobody likes it, either you have a problem with the wrong audience, or you have a problem with your writing, and that would be another time to go back and look at feedback. I mean, it's the same way when we teach writing to students, right? Sometimes they're very confident that they have been very clear, and you, the teacher, pick it up and think, I have no idea what you're trying to say. Or you've said the same thing 5 different times in slightly different ways, but it's just one idea. Can you go further? So the same kinds of feedback that we give students, you are hoping somebody else can come and give to you. But I mean, editors are not just for new writers, right? Or people not confident about their English. The best writers in the world have editors who help them refine and focus their writing. So that's
so
why I recommend everybody.
Editors don't mean that this having an editor doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It is just another perspective, right?
Yeah, exactly. Stephen King has an editor. He sells lots of books, right? J.K. Rowling has several editors. She sells lots of books. It's not the sign of being a bad writer or a new writer or something. It's you know, like you said, a way of polishing your manuscript and seeing it in another way, testing it out on someone else. When you write, your ideas are so clear in your mind because it's your mind. But your readers have their own minds. So you also have to know that your writing is going to be clear to somebody who isn't you. And that's why it's helpful to have outside eyes. I would say first with some kind of peer feedback, and then with a professional.
Yes. So thank you so much for this very interesting ideas. So Nuha, do you have any comments about this? About writing?
Thank you. That was a great session. I think I'll start writing my own blog, as you mentioned.
Yay, go. Then when you start your own blog, post the address on everyone's Facebook page, and we can all visit and leave you some comments, right?
Yes, maybe starting with a blog is good for writers who are hesitating.
Yeah, okay. And then you can post the blog link on the Everyone Academy page and say, I got this idea from Everyone Academy. And then already you have a little bit of an audience who might go over and check your work. And then you've started.
Thank you, Dorothy.
So, Dorothy, thank you so much for this great session. Do you have any final tips for teachers about,
Yes,
this topic?
yes, I do have a final tip. And I do also work as an editor, and I work a lot with not English language teachers, with native speakers, with novelists.
Yes.
And sometimes when they get stuck on ideas, it's like, oh, I don't have any, I can't write, I'm thinking, I don't know why I'm blocked.
The writer's block.
Writer's block. And what I tell them is, we can fix anything as long as it's written down.
Absolutely.
But until it's written down, we can't do anything with it. So I don't care if you sit down and you type out something really bad. Once it exists, then it can be fixed. But if you never begin, you can't work with it, your friend can't work with it, an editor can't work with it. It has to exist. So I don't want to hear about writer's block. Just write something. There's actually a wonderful website called Written Kitten. And when you write, I think 500 words, every time you write 500 words, you get a picture of a kitten. Written Kitten.
Really?
And that's a way to motivate yourself. You can change it, I think. Also, you can get rabbits or you can get dogs. But
Kitten is good.
Yeah, Written Kitten. So that's one way to positively motivate yourself. If you are someone who does better with negative motivation, there is a site. I haven't checked this one recently. I know Written Kitten is still there. I'm not sure about Write or Die. But Write or Die, so you have to write, and if you stop writing,
Will die.
it will begin to erase your words.
Oh, yes.
As long as you keep writing, your words will exist. But if you stop and think for too long, it begins to erase your words. So if you are someone, for me, that's too much pressure. I would rather have a kitten than lose my work. But find what works for you. But it's okay. The same thing you would tell a student. It's okay if your first draft is terrible. It's okay if your first draft is completely different from your final draft. But we can't work with the first draft until there is a first draft. So the challenge is just to write something, right? Even if you skip some paragraphs or throw in some other language or throw in a picture or put a question mark, but just keep going and write something. Come back another day, and then you will be able to improve it and make it better. And eventually you will get there.
So the site you mentioned, there is the concept of gamification.
Yes.
Which
so
is
if you're
good.
someone who responds to that.
Great.
Aziz, if you are still stuck at the brainstorming stage, try out Written Kitten.
Yes, I will try it. I just want to say that the book that I completed because of your course, I actually sold 2 copies. That's not it. They were like $1 for per copy. That's not a lot of money, but it's an accomplishment.
Yeah, but it's something, and every time someone buys the book, it means they're reading it, and maybe you're connecting to somebody who's not your friend, right? And it's exciting to communicate with a stranger. Right?
Yes.
That you can help.
So thank you so much, Dorothy, for this great session. We learned a lot. I know that you are an expert in writing and editing. That's why I said this is an important session for everyone who would like to enjoy, writing, who would like to publish his own ideas and to share it with the world.
Oh, and don't forget to put into the chat the document with all the links.
Yes, I have posted them in the comments.
Good, thank you. So it's just easier for people to click than anything else.
Yes, I shared the document, and also we made it in like a picture. We will share it also in the.
Perfect.
For
Thank you
people,
so much.
because people are visual also.
Yeah.
So thank you, Dorothy.
Okay, and thank you for inviting me.
So see you later.